So, hallo und herzlich willkommen zu einer weiteren Runde The Stanley Parable. Ultra Deluxe.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean?
Gute Frage.
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Genau, beim letzten Mal haben wir uns alles angeguckt und genau das gemacht, was der Sprecher von uns wollte. Guckt euch unbedingt die Folge an, damit ihr die Story versteht. Ist wirklich ein sehr nettes Game, ich werde hier raushängen. Ich werde das 100% vielleicht zocken. Vielleicht wird es noch zu kompliziert, es gibt ja so Games. Ja. Da denkst du ja irgendwann so, kein Bock mehr. Auf jeden Fall, er hat bisher gesagt, wir sollen zum Meeting Room gehen und hier sind wir jetzt.
When Stanley came to a set of two open
Er sagt,
doors,
beim letzten Mal
he
sind wir durch
entered
die
the door
linke
on his
gegangen,
left.
wir gehen nur durch die rechte.
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it.
Genau, hier sind wir in der Mitarbeiter-Lounge.
Yes, truly a room worth admiring. It had really been worth the detour after all, just to spend a few moments here in this immaculate, beautifully constructed room. Stanley simply stood here, drinking it all in.
Die ganzen Kaffeetassen hier überall. Okay, interessant, interessant.
But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
Könnten wir machen, machen wir aber nicht.
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
Ja, stimmt.
Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time.
Das stimmt.
Someone you've been neglecting, Stanley. Someone you've forgotten about. Please, stop trying to make every decision by yourself. Now, I'm not asking for me, I'm asking for... This is it, Stanley. Your chance to redeem yourself. To put your work aside. To let her back into your life. She's been waiting.
Ich denke, er meint, wir sollen hier durchgehen, aber machen wir nicht. Wir gehen wieder zurück. Oder? Geht das? Ja? Man könnte vielleicht diesen Ich bin runtergefallen.
But in his eagerness to prove that he is in control of the story and no one gets to tell him what to do, Stanley leapt from the platform and plunged to his death. Good job, Stanley. Everyone thinks you are very powerful.
Okay, wenigstens haben wir ein neues Ende freigeschaltet. Bis gleich. Ich mache hier kurz einen Cut. So, hier sind wir wieder. Ich bin jetzt hier wieder.
Stanley was so bad at
Ich würde sagen, ich skippe
following
nochmal rüber.
directions,
Darunter springen wir gleich auch mal. Ihr seht das hier. Das machen wir beim nächsten Mal.
Stop trying to make
In diesem
every
Part noch,
decision
aber
by yourself. Now,
gleich.
I'm not asking for me.
Ich würde sagen, wir machen das
Stanley.
mal, was er
Your
möchte.
chance to redeem yourself. To put your work aside. To let her back into your
Ich würde sagen,
life.
das machen wir auch mal.
She's been waiting. That's her, Stanley. You need to be the one to do this. To reach out to...
Ich habe das jetzt gemacht. Mal sehen, was passiert. Das ist unser Zimmer.
Oh, Stanley, is that you? Hold on, sweetie. Sorry to keep you waiting. I'm just pulling the bread out of the oven. All right. Okay, there we go. All right, now, I want you to come in and tell me all about your day.
Gotcha! Oh, come on. Did you actually think you had a loving wife? Who'd want to commit
Prank.
their life to you? I'm trying to make a point here, Stanley. I'm trying to get you to see something. Come inside. Let me show you what's really going on here.
Okay. Nö.
Sorry, but you're in my story now.
Na, Mann. Wäre cool, könnte man jetzt in so ein anderes Zimmer gehen.
This is a very sad story about the death of a man named
Okay.
Stanley.
Guten Morgen, Mitarbeiter. J.
Stanley is quite a boring
Okay, ich
fellow.
mute mich
He
mal
has
und
a
drück
job
was.
that demands nothing of him, and every button that he pushes is a reminder of the inconsequential nature of his existence.
Ich drücke jetzt mal was anderes. Okay, nee, nichts passiert. Ich mache das mal.
Look at him there, pushing buttons, doing exactly what he's told to do. Now he's pushing a button. Now he's eating lunch. Now he's going home. Now he's coming back to work. One might even feel sorry for him, except that he's chosen this life. But in his mind, he can go on fantastic adventures. From behind his desk, Stanley dreamed of wild expeditions into the unknown, fantastic discoveries of new lands. It was wonderful. And each day that he returned to work was a reminder that none of it would ever happen to him. And so he began to fantasize about his own job. First, he imagined that one day while at work, he stepped up from his desk to realize that all of his co-workers, his boss, everyone in the building had suddenly vanished off the face of the earth. The thought excited him terribly. So he went further. He imagined that he came to 2 open doors and that he could go through either. At last, choice. It barely even mattered what lay behind each door. The mere thought that his decisions would mean something was almost too wonderful to behold. As he wandered through this fantasy world, he began to fill it with many possible paths and destinations.
Okay, es hat sich was verändert.
Down one path lay an enormous round room with monitors and mind controls. And down another was a yellow line that weaved in many directions. And down another was a game with a baby.
Okay, keine
And he
Ahnung, wovon
called
er
it
redet.
the Stanley Parable.
Gut.
It was such a wonderful fantasy, and so in his head he relived it again, and then again, and again, over and over, wishing beyond hope that it would never end, that he might always feel this free. Surely there's an answer down some new path, mustn't there be? Perhaps if he played just one more time. But there is no answer. How could there possibly be? In reality, all he's doing is pushing the same buttons he always has. Nothing has changed. The longer he spends here, the more invested he gets, the more he forgets which life is the real one. And I'm trying to tell him this, that in this world he can never be anything but an observer, that as long as he remains here, he's slowly killing himself. But he won't listen to me. He won't stop. Here, watch this. Stanley, the next time the screen asks you to push a button, do not do it. You see? Can he just not hear me? How can I tell him in a way that he'll
Es verwandelt
understand
sich
that
alles in
every
unser
second
Büro.
he remains here, he's electing to kill himself? How can I get him to see what I see? How can I make him look at himself? I suppose I can't, not in the way I want him to. But I don't make the rules. I simply play to my intended purpose, the same as Stanley. We're not so different, I suppose. I'll try once more to convey all this to him. I'm compelled to. I must. Perhaps, well, maybe this time he'll see. Maybe this time. And I tried again. And Stanley pushed a button. And I tried again.
Ich habe
And
nichts
Stanley pushed
gedruckt.
a button. And I tried.
Okay, lass mich raten. Ich bin jetzt wieder am Anfang, oder? Ja, ist es. Gut, ich würde sagen, wir machen jetzt nochmal weiter.
All of his co-workers were
What
gone.
could it mean?
What could it mean? Stanley
Ich gehe noch mal
decided to
zu
go
den
to the
zwei
meeting
Türen.
room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. When Stanley came to a
Ich
set
würde
of
sagen,
two
wir gehen
open
jetzt mal nach
doors,
links
he entered the door
und dann mal
on his
diesen
left.
Treppen nach unten. Guckt euch den letzten Part an. Und wenn ihr schon mal dabei seid, könnt ihr auch auf Liken und Abonnieren drücken, wenn ihr wollt.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping
Hier
he
sind
might
wir
find an
jetzt.
answer there.
Wir
Coming to a
gehen jetzt mal nach
staircase,
unten.
Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Okay, es sieht anders aus. Ich sehe was anderes. Was steht da? Ich kann es nicht lesen. Bestimmt steht da was. Es würde passen.
But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post during work hours. He might be fired for that.
Huh?
And in such a
geht im
competitive
Kreis.
economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy.
Okay,
All of
es
my
wird schlimmer.
co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a single moment for no reason at all. None of it made any logical sense. And as Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down? Why did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went? And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Were they simply repeating? No, Stanley said to himself, this is all too strange. This can't be real. And at last, he came to the conclusion that had been on the tip of his tongue. He just had
Es wird immer schlimmer.
for it. I'm
Ja, finde ich auch.
dreaming, he yelled. This is all a dream. Oh, what a relief Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an explanation. His co-workers weren't actually gone. He wasn't going to lose his job. He wasn't crazy after all. And he thought to himself, I suppose I'll wake up soon. I'll have to go back to my boring real-life job pushing buttons.
Okay.
I may as well enjoy this
Selbstrealisation.
while I'm still lucid.
Wahrscheinlich.
So, he imagined himself flying and began to
Hör,
gently
wir,
float
stimmt,
above
wir
the
fliegen.
ground. Then he imagined himself soaring through space on a magical starfield, and it too appeared. It was so much fun, and Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking? Now the voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley,
Ja, es ist
who
wirklich
found it
paradox.
particularly strange. I'm dreaming about a voice describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts, he thought.
Okay, es wird immer
And
schlimmer.
while he thought it all very odd and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How could it be? Was Stanley simply deceiving himself, believing that if he's asleep, he doesn't have to take responsibility for himself? Stanley is as awake right now as he's ever been in his life. Now, hearing the voice speak these words was quite a shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream. So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his
Ich sehe
skin,
nix.
the press of the mattress on his back, the fresh air of a world outside this one. Let me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing the buttons. Please, it's all I want. I want my apartment and my wife.
Okay, die gibt's
and my
ja scheinbar
job.
nicht, haben wir gerade gesehen.
All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal. I am normal. Everything will be fine. I am okay.
Ja, schön.
Stanley began screaming. Please, someone, wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am
Gott,
real. Please, just someone tell me I am
Was ist das
real.
nun?
I must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black.
Oh. Ich glaube, das war's.
This is
Okay,
the
eine
story
andere
of a
Person.
woman named Mariella. Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments, she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy. This much she
Okay.
knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better. But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day. The very important people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
Okay, irgendwie haben wir das Leben von irgendjemandem verbessert. Aber, jetzt nur the end, es geht wieder von vorne los. Oh, ich kann E drücken. Hier geht es irgendwie nicht. Egal. Ich sage tschüss, bis zur nächsten Folge. Ciao.